Well, hello. Welcome to the Entheogenic Explorer podcast. My name is Kirby, and I've got with me Molly Douglas this morning. Excited to have a conversation with Molly. I've known Molly for some time now, but as we were just having a conversation before we started recording here, I don't know as much about her as I'd like to know about her, especially as far as her background is concerned, how she started, how she got to where she is today, and what that looks like. So I'm excited for this conversation. Molly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kirby. I'm very honored and excited to be here. Yeah, let's have a good chat.
We will have a good chat. And like all the conversations I like to have, it is just in that format. It's a conversation. So a good way to start the conversation is just folks that don't know you. And even again, for me, just a reintroduction of who you are and what all you do, which I know is a lot. So I'm excited to hear it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll dive in. Um, I guess the short introduction is that I'm an art therapist in the community here. Um, I practice trauma sensitive yoga, as well as energy work. And I've been doing this for about 2 decades. It's been a process of this type of approach. It started out with art therapy, recognizing that it's such a great tool to move beyond, especially to heal trauma, where words just aren't there. Words weren't always my go-to either. So it's been my own journey of healing as well. And then when I was introduced to trauma sensitive yoga, that just made so much sense to integrate that. It had the same principles. It was all about being in the present moment and connecting to the feeling and not having to know or to go through everything in order to heal, but just connected to the feeling and the belief system we have about ourselves, from that experience and be able to process through that. And then a little further down the line where I was introduced to energy work, and started incorporating that. And I currently use, those modalities of Reiki and pranic healing and, you know, seeing that we really are multidimensional beings. And it started making so much sense that this was soul work. Like this was beyond energy work. This was beyond um emotions and just feeling better. Like this was really about seeing the self on a multidimensional level and exploring that more and recognizing that anything that moves through us and out us, is an expression of our higher self. And art therapy always used that language of higher self, connecting to the higher self, being able to see things from a higher perspective, because that creativity tool allows you to connect into that higher self and kind of bypass the old story a little bit, similar to EMDR, similar to psychedelic plant medicine, where it just kind of gets the junk out of the way so we can really see what's going on. And I love that tool and recognizing that we really have to be connected to the body. And, what takes us more out of the body than trauma, abuse, addiction, like all those things that we experience in this lifetime and, generations before us, and that we're healing through. And that, this really is a multidimensional tool. So I guess for the bigger part, that's what I do. And I've been able to see that also as a lens of the sacred feminine, which is connection back to the body, connection back to the spirit, that higher self, and a different lens. It's all about that different perspective, the heart lens, where there's compassion, where we connect into our creativity and our intuition to guide us and lead us. And I believe we're all born with that. And we've just been either told we don't have that or made to believe that by outside authority figures instead of being able to really listen to our own inner authority figure, of what we feel and what we know that, feels right or doesn't feel right. So the processes and approaches that I've used and still use for my own journey and others is been those principles of coming back to your own inner authority figure and allowing that higher self to be the guide, which I think is a pretty different than most traditional therapies where you just sit and talk and someone tells you what to do.
Yeah, I think I think art therapy is underrated and undervalued for the reasons that you mentioned. A lot of folks are dealing with trauma or it's items one that maybe words don't fit, or they don't necessarily have the words or recall the incident. So a lot of it, we know the body keeps a score. We know a lot of it necessarily isn't in our thoughts. We can't recall it, but there's other ways to bring these to the surface and work with them. And art therapy is a phenomenal way of doing it that, again, I wish more folks discovered. So as a licensed mental health counselor, right? So you start off art therapy, licensed mental health counselor. Did you imagine that you'd go the route that you did today? And what kind of spurred you in this direction? Because I agree with you, and I mean this with all respect to all my therapists and counselors out there, and I think anybody that is listening that's in that field, and I'll toss myself in that. I've just started going back to school for that. But I think if you don't understand what we're talking about here and the impact it's having on individuals and some other modalities that will work with this, I think you're going to be a little bit behind, because I think folks are starting to realize that traditional therapy, although effective for some, isn't as effective as, again, some of these other modalities or blending with these modalities that we'll talk about. But what was your path to that understanding? Yeah, how did you get there? Did you have an experience? Did something happen that you said, look, I want to do something a little bit different?
Is when I first started out, I wanted to do something. I knew I liked creativity and arts. I always liked that. I didn't think I was an artist. I wasn't a good artist. I wasn't, like landscapes but it was an expression and it felt fun. And I thought I wanted to do something with animals. At one time, I thought I wanted to be a pet psychologist,
Ooh,
or a pet therapist. Yeah, I love animals.
love
Um,
that.
and art therapy was just something that felt different. And it was in grad school that, the word purpose came through. And it was really through my own healing experience. I was like, wow, yeah, we had to be our own guinea pigs in grad school, right? We had to have these raw, open heart experiences, in these group settings and do our own work. And one of the few programs, maybe one of the few programs that there's mandatory therapy. So you got to do your shadow work. You got to do your work. And the best therapists are the ones that have the therapists. And it didn't ever really feel like I, belong, which was a wound, is what I call a starseed wound, where we just don't feel we belong. Trauma can create that, story as well. But it always felt different. It always felt out of the box. It always felt not like what the other therapists were doing. However, that has since evolved, right? Like when I started doing trauma sensitive yoga, which was back in 2013, there was a very small handful of us. And same with art therapy. There was a very small handful in Iowa, and even the master's program, there wasn't one here in Iowa. I had to go out of state. So, but since then, I think it has evolved. I think we are recognizing that, especially trauma, yes, absolutely stored in the body, that, we need to work with the body in order to release those stories and those belief systems. And tools that are beyond what we've been told are the way to go, whether that's, um, you know, prescriptions and things like that. Especially with trauma, like the voice shuts down, there aren't the words, and sometimes there just are no words for this experiences that we've had. And so being able to, yeah, hold a space with that higher self or higher consciousness in order to be able to process it, we're learning that there are so many more modalities out there and approaches out there that connect people back to their authentic self. And that's really what this work is, that you do and that I do, that is so critical to the evolution of humanity, is connecting back to that authentic self, from the, beyond. Or it's almost like the shedding, right? The shedding of the masks and the layers that we take on, or that have been, put on us, or that we use to survive, really. And recognize that we can feel whole, feel our wholeness, with our true self, and loved and accepted. And that can be such a scary process. And the more tools we have that make that easier, and not, you know, that work through the challenges and the obstacles, and really the shadow work. Like anything we're here to reclaim, we have to go through that shadow part first. And yeah, I think there's just more and more tools and more approaches that are holding a space for not only the emotional and now the connection to the body, but absolutely the spiritual. Like you can't have the spiritual without the body, and that nurturing, compassionate approach.
Yeah. In your opinion, and again, I think just my opinion with it, what we're trying to do, I mean, and again, just my thoughts on it. For the first 6 or 7 years of your life, again, your brain's in theta, which is essentially just hypnosis. So all the programming, you're just absorbing it. So having a 6-year-old, I'm constantly thinking, oh boy, what am I doing? What did I say? I understand that she is just absorbing it all in this theta brainwave, not conscious yet. Starting to see levels of consciousness now. Now she's starting to create her own personality, and the program's starting to run. I think most people go through their entire lives and don't realize that there's this level of programming. And if you don't realize there's some level of programming, you're making decisions and choices that you think you're making with this amount of free will that I think is not there. So a lot of folks think they're making conscious choices out of free will, and then they're regretting them. But come to find out, a high probability is that's programming making those decisions for you, and you have a little less control than you think. But that is the importance of finding this authentic self, right? Speaking with a gentleman yesterday, he's like, well, I didn't realize that I just click into out of body mode when I'm going to these presentations and meetings. Fine, you're 40 years old. You took your whole life. You didn't realize that. But now you're starting to see this authentic version of yourself. Once you see this authentic version of yourself, now you're starting to see the characters. So you recognize this character that popped up in the meeting. That's the first step, I think, of realizing, wow, first off, have some compassion for ourselves that we're here because a lot of programming, how many no's and don't do that, and you shouldn't do this, and this is how you should do it. Have you heard by the time you're 18 to 20 years old? I heard hundreds of thousands. So if each of those are a little brick, most people have bricked them into a corner, and that's how they live, but they don't realize it. They think there's not this brick wall. So I think the work that you're doing and the ways of helping folks find this like authentic version of themselves is the most important aspect of this. I mean, so in your opinion, what role would you say the energy work and these other modalities play in the overall well-being and mental health of the people that you're working with?
Beautiful point. Yeah, my heart chakra started to flutter when you were talking about that, and that recognition of becoming aware, right? Waking up. I mean, we talk about being conscious, waking up, but really becoming aware. And it is those places where, just like you said with that, that person, like I became aware that this is what I'm doing. Right. That's where we start, is that awareness. And then once we're aware, we become awake. And as we awaken, we're awakening to, oh, now I have choices, right? I can keep doing these same patterns, these same repeated, habits, rituals, just, just, something that's just very comfortable, right? Very familiar. And we repeat it because it's familiar. We stay there because
Familiar.
it's familiar, because it's
Yes.
comfortable. And it is when we get out of that space, right? When we recognize that, and this art therapy shows this, and trauma sensitive yoga shows this pattern. It's like, great. Now you have choices, right? What are your choices now? Because it's when in trauma, oh, I'll slow down a little bit. I feel my words going really quick. Um, when we experience trauma, there's a sense of helplessness. We don't have choice,
Yeah.
right? Um, and the process of recognizing when we have choices, when we're aware, awake, we can then, one, there's more freedom. There's more like, oh, empowerment, right? I can do this or I can do this. So yeah, you can choose what you do with this pattern of behavior or this thought process or this routine that you've been doing for so long, maybe at an unconscious level, that you now get to decide, is it still working for me? Is it still serving a purpose? Um, is there anything I want to change or shift about this? And if so, great. What do I need in order to do that? You can start taking some action and become more aligned. So there's this kind of process of becoming aware, awake, and aligned. And when we align with our higher self, we align with the divine, how I like to say it, which is really just what is going to feel most in balance and harmony. Um, what's come up is that lately is the image, and I can't remember where I heard this or saw this, but it's like the difference between being the salmon that's like swimming upstream and fighting it, or being the dolphin that's like, swimming with the waves. Do you want to be the dolphin? That's just going with the flow and finding that ease and that alignment with these choices that um, are are connecting with you now versus being that salmon that's that constant battle, that's swimming upstream, where there's more force, where it takes more energy, it can be more tiring. And so, yeah, when we awaken to, well, now I have choices. I don't have to keep doing these same patterns that my parents did, or, behaviors thought patterns that don't work for me. And that is the authentic path. That is that true path of figuring out what lights you up, what aligns, with you, what's going to fill up your cup, um, and work for you. And not only you, one of the best questions I love is, when creating intention for what you're wanting to take aligned action with, not only is it going to bring you pleasure or enjoyment at a soul level, but, is it for the greater good of all? And for the greater good of all includes yourself. And if we've had these patterns of being a pleaser or, an overgiver, we tend to put ourselves, last. And as those that are in the healing community, as healers, heart healers, um, we can tend to be the overgiver. We can tend to be the pleaser. And working through that shadow work is those self-love boundaries of, is this for the greater good of all, including myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, and creates, sustainability energetically, emotionally. And that, I I would love to see schools in the future, hopefully near future, that are teaching and holding space for the energy work and the spiritual, connection to self. These kids know it, when you're talking about your little, like, they come in so aware. My daughter's 14 now, and she is my best teacher. Like, they know it. And if we can keep them from, keep that connection open, with everything that's going on in this world, and allow them to feel safe with that connection, they're the teachers of a better way. They're the ones that are here to, they know what they're here to do. um how to shine.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, again, as we're talking about the ego, the programming, whatever the word feels right for folks, it's this trap of familiarity. And, a lot of folks don't realize that that is the trap, that is part of the programming, even if that familiarity isn't comfortable, right? So for some folks, it's a comfortable familiarity and they're just going to sit with that. For other folks, it's a very uncomfortable familiarity, but the ego will still stick with that because it's familiar. And again, that's the programming and that's the program trap that a lot of folks, and going back to the salmon analogy, if you're a salmon and your nature is to swim upstream, right? So that's the program. That's what you're familiar with, is we swim upstream. Well, you're swimming upstream to be eaten, right? So to me, if you're a salmon, it's again being aware of these programs, being aware of what it is, to your point of this awakening, this awareness of, oh, I'm just swimming upstream because that's what everybody's done. That's what I've always been told we do. Is that not what we do? I see I've just been doing this as a program. Now you have some awareness. Now you have this little level of consciousness. And I believe that you obtain more free will through more consciousness. As the more programming becomes aware, the more you are aware of these familiar traps that you just do because you've done, the more you're aware of them, the more then you're able to then decide if that is something. Do I want to swim upstream to the bear? Or do I want to do something else with myself? And for most folks, I think, again, going back to traditional therapies and again, continuing not to knock on it, if you don't know of this program and if you're not aware of this authentic portion of yourself, I think it's very difficult to move forward because you think that is you. You think you are making these decisions. You think that you are in charge of this and you think you are what you are. And I know that sounds strange to a lot of folks, but if you could really see that almost all these aspects of who Kirby is a huge amount of programming until there's some level of consciousness where you could shift it. So I think that work is vital of showing folks who you really are. And then through that observation of that, you can start making changes. But if you don't see that, you're really just trying to change this programmed part of yourself that really is going to be resist because the ego is going to stick with the familiarity. And that's most folks. I mean, they wake up in the morning, we're addicted to emotions. And this familiarity of this is how my day goes. When this happens, I react this way. When somebody says this, I respond that way. And that just kind of reinforces this programming. So I think it's crucial what you're doing to just bring this awareness to folks of this is how you're navigating it. You may not even be aware that this is it. But then also for folks that have that awareness, and again, I see this in my space a lot, they'll have this awakening, they'll have this thought, but then it's all the work. And that's what a lot of folks are shifting away from. You can have this cognitive realization of like, oh, I've been programmed and I'm playing out this program. I need to be different. Well, now what? And so that's, again, where you would step in. And I'd say, in your opinion, what are some of your favorite ways of working with folks as they're starting to step into this space and think, I'd like to be a little bit different? What are some of your favorite ways of working with folks?
That's a beautiful point. It's that action, right? We can become aware of it, but it takes that action, that intention to do things a new way, to do things differently, to put in a new a new habit or new ritual that's going to support the person. When you're speaking about, waking up and doing the same thing, like that's huge. For a lot of people, including myself, that, the brain, like my brain can just start chattering before, the alarm even goes off. And it has to take intention, conscious intention to be like, okay, I'm not going to feed into this. I am going to, lay here. And I think this was, Abraham Hicks talks about this, is just envisioning into your day, like how do you want to feel, not what do you want to happen, because that's where we're like, okay, I want to control the outcome, right? I want it like this, which is really just telling the universe that you know more than them or you know better than them. And when we allow things to unfold, it can be so much greater than we ever imagined. And if you're starting your day by envisioning and feeling into how you want to feel, all about feeling, because it's all about perception, how we perceive. That you can feel into, what do I need today? If we have something that's kind of a high stress day, um, maybe having to public speak or whatever it is, like maybe, I want to feel ease and grace, of my day unfolding. I want to have clear communication and clarity with my mind, like just really feeling into what you might need for the day and how you want to feel, and what that would feel like, and see that, connecting. And that can be, just a few minutes of a process. But if you're rolling out of the bed and you are hitting the bathroom, hitting the go, 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 since, and from the second your feet hit the floor, you're going to constantly be in that heightened nervous system, versus one where you've taken the time. Maybe you take more time in the morning when you are fixing your coffee or your tea or whatever, and have a writing practice of, very similar things. I like to start with thank you. There are different spiritual, practitioners that talk about, just starting with gratitude, and there's, gratitude journal, but there really is something about saying thank you. Thank you for letting this day be filled with ease and grace. Thank you for allowing me to feel supported, held, nurtured. Thank you for the connections, for creating the ripple through frequency, through words, through whatever it is, right? And that thank you already sends it out to the universe as if it's already happened. So then you're bringing in the law of attraction. You're bringing in that energy, which is like this future timeline that's just making that so much more, because this is the only, realm that time really exists, this dimension. And, it's here, it's here already energetically. We've already had this conversation, in the etheric and the other realm. This is just the physical, most densest part where it's here, where it's in this physical. But what we do or shift just in those moments, whether they're micro moments or macro moments, whether we're taking little chunks out of the day, just to, sometimes it's just to ground and root, right? To feel your feet on the floor, to feel where that balance is, to just drop from that head space down to that heart space, especially if there's a lot of emotion. That heart lens, some call that the 12-inch journey, right? Bringing that down to the body. One, it helps you connect to the body and just feel. And the lower we go, the lower we can feel in our body, the more closer we are to the earth, to that grounding, to that rooting, that connection, to feeling held and supported with that energy and that life source energy below us. But that heart lens also creates some distance and some space to the noise. Carrying below the noise to that heart lens allows us to see and shift from that higher perspective, or that spiritual lens, how we see ourselves, how we see any difficulties or challenges, how we see the world around us, right? If we're going to see through this heightened fear-based lens, especially with, the new foundation buildings, things have to crumble first, and systems, and we're going through it. And it's important that we can continue to see through a lens that supports us versus shuts us down, or that expands us and opens us versus shutting us down and wanting us to hide under the covers. And yeah.
The feeling's an important piece, and I think you nailed it. And again, just my personal opinion is, once you could recognize, a lot of times so if I'm driving to work, I remember in the past driving to work, somebody cut me off, and the immediate thought is to be frustrated, jerk, whatever the thought was. And then after some work, some practice, and just some experiences, I remember driving to work, somebody cut me off. My body had that same physical reaction of anxiety, angst, frustration. And the thought of jerk was delayed and it hit me instantly. I'm like, you don't even, that's not even the thought. The thought is being registered because you're having the energetic or emotional reaction, and then you're labeling that reaction. So that reaction is just the reaction. And so now it's like this ability of the body's having the reaction just to experience that feel. Go ahead, do your thing, work through what you got to work through there, but I'm not buying into that story. But a lot of
Yeah.
folks don't understand that feeling is, as you said, it's energetic. It's got some sort of magnetic pull to it, good or bad. Our brain's constantly having thoughts. I mean, our work that we're constantly doing with folks is helping them try to minimize those thoughts or adjust those thoughts into a more positive direction. If 80% of the thoughts people are having are negative self-talk, how do you
Unconscious.
shift that? Yeah. And if your body's having a energetic and emotional reaction to those thoughts, what are you doing to yourself? Your body doesn't know the difference between reality and what it's imagining. I used to in practice have folks get into a little bit of a meditative space and imagine them biting into a lemon, peel the lemon, smell it, and you could literally make their mouth physically salivate. There's no lemon there, but your body is physically reacting to that image of that. So what do you think you're doing to your body all day long when we're having these thoughts, right? And understanding that 99% of these thoughts aren't even real as you're sitting here, and it's also normal. So this isn't shame on folks that this happens to. For example, prior to a podcast, for example, we could have a little anxiety. That anxiety is because we're thinking about something that hasn't even happened yet, right? And because of that, we're having this reaction. That isn't necessarily a real thought. So understanding that could really help you navigate it. But to your point, what are we putting in that program? So is it first thing in the morning, picking up the phone, seeing what's happening abroad, looking at our to-do list? Your body's already energetically and emotionally responding to that. You've set your day. And I love the expression, God loves gratitude. I think, again, just energetically and emotionally being grateful for something. So a little thing I'll just close with here and give folks what I love to do is that hourly meditation. If you've ever heard me talk about it, every hour a little chime goes off and I take 1 minute and I do 3 visualizations of gratitude. My wife, my daughter, and something else that I want to be gracious for. Just that visualization of that is energetically going to shift you. You'll feel it in your physical body. And the more you can shift yourself into those spaces, and we have an integration class coming up. How do you help folks harvest and resource that feeling so they can utilize it later? I just think that's crucial. But again, understanding that your thought is tied to your emotions, and thoughts are just tied together. And if you're constantly thinking, maybe spend some time today just being aware of what those thoughts are. And if you think they're real or not, is going to make a big difference. Um,
Yeah.
Questions. So as I was going through it, and sorry for a brief rant there, explain to folks that are listening. Can you explain what is a psychospiritual therapy and body centered therapy? What does that look like for someone?
That's that's perfect because I was just going to add on another tool. Is the body, right? Is movement with the body. If you want to shift vibration, if you want to shift energy and shift from that head lens or that head noise, music, music, anything that can create that vibration. We have so many rules around ourselves of like, I can't dance, I can't draw, I can't, right? But you're not doing this for anybody else, and not even calling it dance, but just movement, intuitive movement. Allow the body to be the guide of what feels pleasant, of what feels comfortable, because that's where the energy is stored. That's where the stories are stored, right? So we are moving stuck energy when we are moving, and music holds its own vibration and its own frequency. So like, and even singing or toning, again, I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't draw. We have so many rules around our creativity, or our self-expression. It's our self-expression, our soul expression, self-expression. But toning, you can even just tone. And that toning, we are our own singing bowl. We are our own, you know, vessel. So we can clear ourselves with just some sound coming out with intention of shifting that energy quickly. And yeah, it's all about intention and practice. So the body. It does
Yeah.
start with the body. It connects us back to the body. It takes us away from that noise in the head, the more we are connected to the body. But so many individuals have a difficult time being connected to the body because of what they've experienced. So we have to find what feels pleasant, what feels good, what feels enjoyable. So we're going to want to keep doing it and keep that repetition. For some people, it's not sitting and meditating in silence.
Right.
I'm one of those people that really struggle with just the silence. Something guided, right? Something guided is more, that I can envision, that I can imagine, that, going to that space that's going to be, comforting and soothing and nourishing, whether that's, connecting into the energies of Mother Earth, or going to this, imagined or space that environment that I've either been to or not been to in this lifetime. But so yeah, I just wanted
Love
to,
it.
music and movement is such a great shift in
Agreed.
energy as well. And can do that in between like sessions, or in the morning or in the evening, or just a dance party with your family. Like, just come home and have a, fun and play. It's the play, I think, that we miss so much when we are caught up.
Yeah,
And it's
I
the
agree.
play that can shift. I was in the airport a few months ago, and it was a heightened kind of energy. People were, frustrated and mad because the plane was late or whatever was going on, because there was a delay. You could just feel like the anger and frustration in people. And this guy had a speaker like attached to his suitcase, and he rolled up and he's just blasting this music. And it was right before the holidays, and at first people were kind of looking at him like, should you be doing that? What are you doing? And then all of a sudden, like, people are smiling, they're singing along, like, he's got this big smile on his face, and the whole energy shifted of everybody that was sitting there waiting. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful experience of how music can just shift. And this parent that was kind of nagging at their kid, and their kid that was feeling frustrated and angry, probably hungry, and don't have time to run and go grab something, kind of thing, don't know when the plane's going to start. Like, they started like laughing and playing together. It was so beautiful to witness that. It's just a reminder that music plays such a great um, role in shifting vibration, and just an easy way to move that out. But
Absolutely.
yeah. So the psychological and the spiritual components, right? The head and the heart is really what I feel it comes down to. It's that integration of these dualities that are in this, on this planet, whether, it's the masculine, the feminine, the yin and the yang, the sun and the moon, the shadow and the light. It's the psychological and the spiritual. And we're integrating those. And I believe we're seeing that more and more in therapy and in mental health, of this integration of the and both,
Mm,
of this nurturing, compassionate, body centered, intuitive, creative sacredness of working, seeing ourselves and others and the planet, through this lens. And the psychological and you know the the human. It's the human and the divine. um it's bringing those dualities together to find that balance, and whether that's cosmic and earth, the masculine and feminine, the past and the future. Like, it all comes back to balance in the center. That's what I believe means to be a multidimensional being. And we're just the vessel for the energy to run through, to be that energy channel. But that also makes us multidimensional healing. We can alchemize and we can be the healer moving through all those channels as well.
Well, it's interesting because again, I don't do too much social media, but enough to have watched over the last several months, and more seeing more about the sacred feminine in the high priestess. So I'd be curious about that, as far as, again, for folks that don't know, and maybe a lot of folks do know, maybe I'm just out of the loop. What does that exactly mean? I understand the concept of sacred feminine, but what are you doing with this sacred feminine healing arts and this high priestess path? What's that look like, and what are you doing with folks?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. That's probably one of my favorite topics. The sacred feminine healing arts really has been my own path of healing, and this reconnection back to authority figures or spiritual authority figures having value and worth, and recognizing where that's played such an imbalance through this patriarchal lens for thousands of years of what we've inherited, of what we've learned, of where the value has been placed. And it's probably early 2000s where I saw, like, in college, I took a world religion class, and I was just in awe of, like, wow, there are so many other spiritual cultures and traditions that honor women, or that women have been, of seen as sacred, seen as worthy, seen as equal. There are so many stories that have been rewritten through this patriarchal story that I believe are coming back around, as what I've come to learn is called the sacred feminine awakening, which is bringing in this balance of energy. And when I talk about when I talk about masculine and feminine, this is energy. It's a spiritual concept. So it's beyond gender. It doesn't matter how you identify, male, female, neither or both. It is beyond. This duality of energy is within all of us. And it's coming back to that balance of energy within, but also recognizing the value and the worth of both. And we all have those wounds to heal. So with the sacred feminine awakening, as we move through that journey, that is the connection back to the body, seeing the body as a temple, as a channel for light to move through. It's a connection to the heart-centered lens, seeing the self and others through that compassionate, especially our wounds, our mother wounds, our feminine wounds, that shadow work. We have to have a different lens to hold that, and also connecting back to our intuition, our creativity, and our full range of emotions. And that hasn't always been accepted or seen as value or worthy. And the feminine crown. So anything connected to, the really these energy centers and gifts that we hold, as a woman, reconnecting back to the sacredness of, the womb, and just what it means, that where there's been a lot of separation and division. And same for masculine. We all have a mother. Like, we all have a mother, and to be separated from this nurturing, compassionate, unconditionally loving mother energy is a wound in all of us. It's an ancient one that we're here to heal and bring balance to this planet and help humanity evolve. And so it's an awakening. And so the sacred feminine healing arts is really this um, ancient wisdom. This is not a me thing. This is not a me concept. It's ancient. Like this is re-remembering and reconnecting back to seeing the self as sacred, as divine, recognizing that is what it truly means to be human, is to embody this energy. And this own journey of healing has been like a descend in order to rise. And the ancient cultures have talked about this for thousands and thousands of years, of this energy, whether it's the Kundalini energy, that's the serpent energy that gets its wings, that moves into a flying serpent, which is the dragon energy, and practices the energy work in Eastern religions and cultures, very similar, like Qigong has philosophies that are very similar. It's a different lens that we're reclaiming. And it just has made so much sense in my world, because unconsciously, it's been the principles of art therapy. It's been the principles of trauma sensitive yoga, of this energy work, that it's about being in the present moment. It's about being connected to the body, connecting into the creative and intuitive parts of self that we all are born with, and being able to connect into our higher self, our higher wisdom, in order to help us navigate what our wants and needs are, right? What is the bigger picture? Why does that trigger me so much, right? What is that thought? What is that feeling that goes along with it? And being able to be our own inner authority figure, to make our own choices for ourselves to what feels the most aligned from that higher consciousness, or that unity of that balance of both the masculine and feminine within. Because once we awaken in that feminine and bring that balance, we also are able to hold a very compassionate place now for, and this is the part of the journey I'm currently finding myself on, is the masculine, like embodying that masculine energy. So if the feminine represents the spirit, then the masculine is the soul. It's embodying that soul energy, and they work hand in hand. Like we have to have one to have the other, in order to move things out. Where if the feminine, creative, intuitive idea, we have to have that masculine, confident energy to move things out into action. It's like the banks of the river. It holds, it supports, it it's water and fire. It's a beautiful energy of both. And that union, that sacred union within, is when we have that imbalance within, we also have that outside of ourselves. So yeah, it's a spiritual tool. It's a perspective, a lens that heals trauma, a connection back to the body, and a tool to release old stories and reclaim the self.
Well, that sounded fantastic, and I can only imagine. I'm sure it's an honor to have an opportunity to work with you. I'm sure the folks that are working with you, this sounds incredible, and I mean that. To just do a quick shift, we're running out of time here. I want you to talk about your, I don't want to call it jewelry, I want to call it art. I'm not familiar with it all, but I am watching you do some amazing displays of some things that you're crafting, tarot card. Tell us what else you have going on. You've got a lot going on. I want to hear about it.
Thanks, Kirby. Yeah, so getting back in touch with the creatrix within has really opened up some opportunities where I've gotten to really be able to collaborate with people and to birth things out that has been a process for a while. And yeah, this high priestess path is really coming into a place of allowing the path to unfold, allowing the direction to unfold. So you can put that energy out there and see what the universe brings you. And I could not even imagine that I was saying, hey, I want to do something creative. I want to do a creative project. I want it to be something that fills up my cup and lights me up and allows me to use my gifts and talents. And I connected with this really beautiful human being, Robin Rhodes, a few years back, and we did our first jewelry line collection based off these archetypes of the Age of Light that have been this reclaiming of, the empowering parts of self through this journey. And I also teach these courses. And she wanted to create her jewelry more spiritual. So we connected specific stones that helps these, what I call the starseed journey, which is this re-remembering of who you are and what you're here to do, and connect into soul mission to help support people along their path. And so we're on our second jewelry line that's representing the second part of the journey of anchoring in the divine masculine, and those stones that represent that. So, and then I've also done an oracle deck, and here, this has been like a 7-year work in progress, but I finally was able to publish it, and the guidebook, the channel guidebook that goes along with it. Some of these, yeah, this is really been my baby. The oracle deck and the jewelry collections, they're really fun. And the classes, like, it's just, yeah, it it lights me up. It lights me up to create. It lights me up to collaborate. I love being able to, do something fun, but is also really a helpful tool for somebody else to remember their worth, remember their value, connect into higher self and higher consciousness.
That's beautiful. Well, I've got like 20 more questions I want to ask you, but we have limited time, so we'll have to do this again. But in closing,
Yeah.
I want to give you some space to share anything that you feel that you wanted to share. And I'd recommend maybe just how folks also can get hold of you, how they can find you. I'll post the links to your the things that you have talked about and have given links to. I'll put that in the actual video so folks will have access to that. But yeah, anything that you want to close with that you think that would be important, and how folks can get hold of you outside of the links.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you're local, if you're in the Des Moines area, I do have a private practice here in Clive called Healing Arts. I work with some incredible other human beings, and they're, very talented. There's an integration counselor. There's a medium, psychic medium. There's an individual that does sacrocranial therapy. So really just this multi-dimensional, network of beings. We have sound healing, we have, Reiki and energy masters and practitioners there. So really beautiful space. I also work with individuals one-on-one. I have some groups. I work online as well as in person. COVID was a great experience to see that there's so many things we can do online and do virtually that work just as well, and even better sometimes. I have a website. You can always connect in with me on my social media platforms. It is I am lit, LIT, from within, or I am lit from within.com to see what's going on. Yeah, I think, I think that's about it. I have courses and classes that you can take online. Oh, I have a healing arts yoga class that I teach. It's free for individuals who have been victims of a sexual crime. Any crime doesn't have to be reported. Just to be able to connect and um, yeah, work on being in the present moment and finding what feels pleasant to stay connected to the body.
Well, I'd say if you're considering having some conversation with folks, obviously, I'm not just saying it because she's on the podcast, but that's why I do this, is to not just highlight folks, but also to get to know them a little bit better and get comfortable with that. But the variety of modalities that you offer in conjunction with any type of mental health, the therapy, I think is phenomenal. I think that's the right route for folks. And again, just to have a depth of it, where I think this one size fits all modality concept isn't working. So to be able to go to somebody like you, just kind of express where you're at and what you're working with, and you have multiple tools in your tool belt is the right path for a lot of folks. I hope they consider it. Again, I will put all your information in the links below, and I really do hope folks reach out to you, have a conversation with you, and learn a little bit more about you. But I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today and come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kirby. And one other thing I wanted to mention was this healing arts method. I call it the AHA method. I have a PDF that you can follow along to work through some of those limiting beliefs and be able to shift them and move them, that I would love to offer for free. If you send me your email, I'll send you the PDF. And it's a nice tool to have to be able to go to if something feels stuck, or a challenge or obstacle. And of course some of those things are layered, and I said I'm happy to work with individuals one-on-one as well. So yeah.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
send an email, get the PDF, and
Yes.
follow that track, see if you can get some benefit. So, well, thank
Yes.
you so much again. I appreciate having you.
Oh, thank you so much. This was great. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, you feel like soul family to me. So thank you.
Thank you.